According to the Global Burden of Disease Study, which is the largest systematic analysis of risk factors in history, the number one cause of death.
Do you see that there's going to be a big pivot so that just your traditional doctor is more aware of just how impactful nutrition is? Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Tricia Friedman, and on this week, we are speaking with Dr. Michael Gregor, who's a physician, a best-selling author, and an internationally recognized speaker on nutrition. He's a graduate of Cornell University and Tufts University School of Medicine. His latest book, the How Not to Age Cookbook, that has over 100 recipes for getting healthier and living longer, is a great book for us to dig into this time of year when I know, speaking for myself, I'm thinking of getting healthier, feeling a little bit better this summer. And Dr. Gregor's cookbook also helps us think about what it means to be not just cooking better so that we live longer, but as he said, adding life to our years. Now, in our conversation, we talk about what this means for helping ourselves, our community, families, students understand nutrition, but also thinking about the media literacy connection. Dr. Gregor talks a little bit about a study that looked at getting rid of any advertising about ultra-processed foods and the impact that had. So I see this cookbook as a springboard to so many different conversations. What might it mean for us to do a very close reading of advertising of some super sugary cereals with our students so they understand how that advertising works? And then what might it mean? You'll hear Dr. Gregor and I have a little bit of a laugh about talking about sexy broccoli. What might it mean to create an advertisement for broccoli that makes it perhaps a little bit more appealing? Now, before we dig into this week's conversation, we have a quick word from our show sponsor.
Shifting Schools is excited to be sponsored by newlight.io. Their platform is designed to simplify MTSS frameworks for personalized student support. Built by leading experts, New Light focuses on getting educators the answers they need fast. Which students need which levels of support? With simple data collection and insightful analytics powered by AI, New Light's platform provides actionable solutions to support your students effectively. Try it for free at newlight.io. That's NEULIGHT.io. Check the link in the show notes to learn more.
And now, with that, please welcome to the show the author of the How Not to Age Cookbook, Dr. Michael Gregor. Dr. Gregor, your brand new book, How Not to Age, the cookbook that has over 100 recipes, and it's beautiful, by the way. The recipes are great. The images are also stunning. You've got this great line in there where you say you don't just want to be adding years to your life, but life to your years. And I'd love to start with how the cookbook helps somebody do that. And our listeners are in education. These are folks who are very busy. They don't have a lot of time. They're often doing meal prep Sunday night when they're tired. So can you talk a little bit about how your recipes, they do provide that advice that is life-giving cooking, but it's also easy to do. It's accessible.
I'm glad you brought up this concept of health span, right? The period of life spent in good health, free from chronic disease and disability. What's the point of living longer if you really can't enjoy it vibrantly? And so the foods that I focus on in the book, not just associated with longevity, but specific foods that can help kind of preserve many of our bodily functions as we get older so we can really enjoy those years, and certainly do try to make it easier to talk about batch cooking, some of the ways that even in our busy life, we can still get some good food, good nutrition in us. But anyone who doesn't think they can eat healthfully, conveniently, has never met an apple. I mean, some of the healthiest foods, or some of the cheapest foods, some of the most convenient foods, and some we shouldn't forget.
You talk a lot about legumes, and I'm also kind of aware of how your model of cooking and eating for wellness is also maybe savvier for the bank account too. Was that something that factored into your research, or is it kind of one of those things that's just a win-win? If you're having more legumes and beans, it's kind of, all around better for everybody.
It's really just it's a happy consequence. You say the same things like, wow, why are all your recipes so climate friendly? Or what? Well, I mean, that's not, it's just this Venn diagram of the foods that happen to be the healthiest. Oh, like sweet potatoes and red cabbage and apples, just happen to be some of the cheapest, most convenient, environmentally healthiest. But those are all happy accidents. If there were just really, if there was something that was super expensive and hard to find, but happened to be really good for you, I wouldn't hesitate for, recommending people try to fit into their daily lives. But, if you look at these blue zones, these areas of exceptional longevity around the world, where they have among the, highest rates of those living to triple digits, and you look at their diets, these are simple diets centered around as their primary protein source, a legume, some sort of legume, and centering around these whole plant foods, getting rid of the ultra processed foods, a lot of the added salt, sugar, etc. Centering the diets on real food that grows out of the ground. These are really some of our healthiest choices.
Well, and I take your point too about sometimes maybe a healthier choice is in the short term more expensive, but if you think about the long term costs, you have this great line in the book: "Eat as if your life depends on it." And we should say this is a book that's you've researched for years. So I wonder, Doctor, to what extent do you think the future of cooking is going to be seen more as just a layer of healthcare? Do we need to reframe the way that we think about eating to be just a part of the same way that, you've got to invest hopefully in finding a good physician, or people might go to physio. Do you think that our concept of cooking is going to shift?
I love that vision. I can only dream. According to the Global Burden of Disease Study, which is the largest systematic analysis of risk factors in history, the number one cause of death in these United States is the American diet. Bumping tobacco to number two, cigarettes not only kill about 500,000 Americans every year, whereas our diet kills many more. So if there's like one thing to think about in terms of, leveraging power over our health destiny, it would be what we put in our mouth 3 times a day. And, food is like a zero-sum game. Every time we put something in our mouth, there's an opportunity cost, a lost opportunity to put something even healthy in our mouth. So when you ask well, is this food healthy? It's like, well, compared to what, right? But what would you be eating otherwise? And so it's all about, kind of ratcheting up the healthfulness. So it's like, are bananas healthy? Oh, yeah. But compared to blueberries? Oh, no way. Okay, what are we going to put in our oatmeal? And so that's kind of a way to think about it. And of course, it doesn't matter what you eat on your birthday, holiday, special occasions. The day-to-day stuff that really adds up. Our body has a remarkable capacity to bounce back from injury. But yeah, on a day-to-day basis, really, we should try to eat, these natural foods from fields, not factories, these unprocessed.
Let's talk a little bit more about the day-to-day, because you actually have a really great little hack in the book where you talk about, if you're traveling, if you're flying, the food that you're going to get on a flight is often not good by kind of all, definitions of good. And so you mentioned you will make purple potatoes, take them with you. What are some of your day-to-day, this is just the way that you think about nutrition, food preparation, where this has become such a habit for you that you're no longer, flying and eating that, really not great taste, nutrition, all senses of the word snack? What are some of the things that you've started doing that this is just habitual now, so it comes easy for you?
Yeah. So it's harder when you're traveling, right? At home, you have control over, what you get to put in your mouth. But on the road, it's really about, packing healthy snacks such that you won't be in a position where you find yourself, tempted to, open up the God knows what's in the hotel minibar kind of thing. And so microwave sweet potatoes, like a purple sweet potato. Very satiating, and so you'll see me on flights just chowing into a sweet potato. It's typical kind of trail mix kind of thing, dried fruit, nuts, kale chips, which are nice and light, which kind of helps when you're trying to stuff stuff into a backpack. Those are kind of the typical things. So really just trying to get myself, through the, 5-6 hour flight just to, so I can land someplace and make healthier choices. But in terms of at home, I do a lot of batch cooking. If I'm like, oh, wow, there's these remarkable benefits to eating, a teaspoon of, ground black sesame seeds every day. Okay, well, I'll grind them up and I'll have it ready. Benefits to a tablespoon of black soybeans every day. All right, well, I make 1 cup of soybeans a month in like an Instant Pot, and then you can get these like silicone baby food trays with like little divots or like little, and so, okay, tablespoon in each, right? And so then there's a little tablespoon cup, you put it in the freezer, and I have a month, right? So I have a month worth, 30 tablespoons worth of my black soybeans that, reduce LDL cholesterol, the primary driver to our primary killer, heart disease. And so, if I'm going to have, oat groats, every morning for breakfast, well, then the same kind of thing. Let's just make a huge batch of it. And then just freeze it in these kind of individual portions, and then just throw it in the microwave while the coffee machine's on and stuff, and it's all ready to go. And so, you look at my freezer, half frozen greens, half frozen berries, and so then it's like, you don't have to worry, you don't have to waste time going to the grocery store a lot. It's, there's a lot of, Tetra Pak foods and, canned, salt-free beans and other things. And, a lot of things are really quick cooking. There's like pre-cooked, whole grains and pastas really quick. And just, anything to make it just easier throughout the day, to just throw something together really quickly, or already have things that are kind of half prepped. Just because, I'm so busy and want to just, get back.
Yeah.
To work.
Well, and I think it is that you're right. Like if you're prepared, that avoids a lot of the, fast food is popular for a reason. I also, I don't want to be like negative towards physicians. I know you are one, but, I'll share a story with you. And I have a lot of friends that have a similar story. Like I am at that age now where all of a sudden I've got like arthritis in my toe. And so when I was getting my consultation, I'm like, okay, well, what else can I be doing? And my doctor was like, nothing. And I'm like, but what about like diet? Like there must be something. And my doctor was like, no, nothing. Like, sorry, it's just going to hurt for the rest of your life and it might get worse. And there does seem to be this huge gap in just, your traditional physician's practice and then nutritional science. Do you see that there's going to be, a big pivot so that, just your traditional doctor is more aware of just how impactful nutrition is?
Doctors have a severe nutrition deficiency in education, right? Most doctors just never taught about the impact health and nutrition can have on the course of illness. So they graduate without this powerful tool in their medical toolbox. Now, look, there's also institutional barriers such as time constraints, lack of reimbursement. In general, doctors simply aren't paid for counseling people how to take better care of themselves. And of course, drug companies play a role in influencing medical education and practice. You can ask that doctor, when's the last time they were taken out to dinner by Big Broccoli? It's, probably been a while. The average nutrition training in the latest national survey is about 20 hours of nutrition training over 4 years of medical school out of thousands of hours of preclinical instruction. Basically, everything doctors know about nutrition can be learned in one kind of long weekend. It's really unfortunate because they're could really, are missing opportunities to be able to help their patients. And for you, my next book, How Not to Hurt, is going to be on pain management alternatives using diet and lifestyle. And so we will find some foods that'll help that.
Thank you so much. Yes, I know many people who will be running to that. But I also I wonder what the piece of science communication is in this, because the other piece, Dr. Gregor, not to make myself sound, very basic, but it was easy to get through your cookbook because of the visuals, to be honest. Like the packaging of the information does play a component, I think, in a world where so many things compete for our attention. Do you think there's also going to be, or a need for I don't know, training for doctors that also helps them understand the way in which you communicate this. Because I think if all of your information in that book perhaps didn't also have that element, I don't know, maybe I would have been like, oh, I'll get to this eventually. But the visual component, the storytelling component also in the way that you're sharing the information felt really accessible.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, just the facts aren't enough. Unfortunately, we learned, I think, some earlier than others, that if we just, why don't people just if facts were enough, we would live in a very different world, particularly our current political reality. But no, people are influenced by all sorts of things, rational and irrational, regardless. We definitely, look around us to see what the rest of society is doing and what kind of emotionally tugs at us. And who's really good at doing that tugging? These massive corporations that do not have the best interests of us at heart. This was, engineered by the tobacco industry. They found just the way to get people hooked onto their products in the food industry, which actually used to be the same thing. So, Philip Morris owned Kraft and, General Mills. And I mean, this is, there's a lot of cross-pollination between tobacco industry and these ultra-processed food companies. And so they've learned how to lure us and our kids into eating, Dayquil marshmallows for breakfast. It's amazing if you really take a step back and realize what they've been able to do. And so, there's an argument to be made. Well, we need to use that same kind of flashy. I don't know if we're ever quite going to be as good as they are. But certainly we need to be able to present this information in a way that's palatable, that's digestible, all no puns intended, to, really just let people make up their own mind. Look, it's your body, your choice. We're responsible for the predictable consequences of our actions. And really the role of a physician is just to explain to them, oh, well, a person in your situation who continues to do X, Y, and Z, these are the likely consequences. And if instead you did this or that, well, then, things might be different. And the good news is we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity, and that the vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a healthy enough diet.
Yeah, and you're right. I wonder, is there some kind of media literacy component to telling that story in a way that is really engaging? So you have me thinking about the interdisciplinary nature of this, how it is a problem that crosses all of those different silos. And you're right. I don't know, what would it mean to market broccoli in a sexier way versus, to what extent do we just need to unlearn some of the narratives around food? But, I do also wonder if with things like bird flu, do you think there's also this convergence of different diseases or different worries about, the next pandemic that might also nudge people to consider being a little more plant-based? Is that the silver lining there, do you think?
I love your sexy broccoli. This is, yes, we all need some more. I think rather necessarily than trying to compete in the same arena, I think some of the most powerful things we can do on a public health scale is to ban some of the advertising. So banning advertising, particularly for kids on some of these, the soda and some of these breakfast cereals. There's a really remarkable study done in London where all the advertising and all transit, whether it's the subway there or all buses, all trains, all controlled by one entity, which decided to eliminate all ultra-processed food advertising. So no more candy and donuts. And throughout the entire city. And the change in public health statistics, they're able to, basically triangulate how many tens of thousands of people didn't get diabetes or didn't become obese just by not restricting anybody's choices, but just not by removing that bombardment at every turn with messages for fast food and junk food, that unfortunately are getting people to make.
I love that. Maybe the future of marketing is more pro-social because, I'm somebody that I think I'm pretty decent at, caring about what I consume. But every once in a while, I'm like, why do I want Coca-Cola? And it is, you're right. I am bombarded with, Tricia, you should want Coca-Cola. So thank you very much for that. I'm gonna look for that study. That's really promising. Thank you so much for your time. I think this book is also really well placed. I know we're entering that season where people really, start to think, all right, I want to feel better in the summer. Anybody that's taking this on and is saying, this is my last question, like, let's do this as a group activity, right? Like, do you have any thoughts on, you know what, this is a recipe that seems to have really landed with people. Maybe have a dinner party, make this as your kickoff to the book group. Do you have thoughts on that?
Oh, I love it. No, the social component is so critically important, right? Food is such a social event. It's so closely tied, everything from business and holidays and family events, such that actually the number one reason for people going back to a less healthy diet is, or like recidivism in the dietary realm, is because it's not that they don't feel great, not that things don't taste good or aren't convenient. It's because of social pressure. But that can actually work both ways. We can have this role modeling effect on our children, on our family members. By eating healthy, we can kind of spread the health. And so, so throw some, portobellos on that grill this summer in hopes that it'll catch someone's eye and maybe they'll eat healthier for a little bit.
I love that. Well, Doctor, thank you so much for your time today. I will be thinking of you when I do, in fact, put some portobellos on the grill. Take care and thank you again.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.